Did you know that June is Pride Month? A month dedicated to celebrating the LGBTQIA+ community. In the spirit of its purpose to make life more beautiful and pass on a more beautiful planet, Clarins is proud to launch No Filter, a dedicated video series that values the uniqueness of each and every one of us. Hello, my name is Marine, and I'm a consultant at Yes We Are agency as an expert on LGBTQIA+ issues and on microaggression. And over the next 2 episodes, we'll discover more together on the LGBTQIA+ community. To celebrate Pride Month, Clarins has launched a special Q&A initiative to explore the questions that matter most to you. We received hundreds of anonymous submissions, ranging from heartfelt concerns to genuine curiosities. My mission? Well, is to provide honest, thoughtful answers, but also to shed light on what it truly means to be a support to the LGBTQIA+ community. That's exactly what the 2 next episodes are all about. Let's talk about definition. You've probably heard of different topics related to the LGBTQIA+ community, but do you know what's behind the acronym? That's what we're going to talk about in this episode. First of all, it's important to know what this topic encompasses. There are 2 categories each letter falls into. The first one is the sexual and romantic orientation, and the second one is gender identity. The sexual and romantic orientation is the sexual or emotional attraction we feel for another person. For example, heterosexuality and homosexuality are sexual orientation. The gender identity is the gender with which a person identifies. It's such a personal, inner feeling that the truth is that there are as many gender identities as there are people, but we do use broad category as a tool to better define ourselves. The most common gender identities in Western cultures are women, men, and non-binary, but some cultures operate with 5 gender identity, for instance. This is not to be confused with biological sex, which are criteria observed at birth, such as genitalia, but also genetic heritage. A person who has a gender identity that matches their biological sex or gender assigned at birth is cisgender, while a person who identifies with a gender other than their biological sex is transgender. But we'll go back to that later. So, what do the letters LGBTQIA+ stand for? Well, first, L is for lesbian. A lesbian is a woman who is attracted to another woman. One of my favorite persons who identify as a lesbian is Audre Lorde. She said, "It is not our differences that divide us. It is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences." I do recommend all of her books. G is for gay, which refers commonly to a man who is attracted to another man. Harvey Milk was one of the gay men that changed everything for LGBTQIA+ people around the globe. Do you know him? He was one of the first openly gay politicians of the USA, and if you want to know more about his story, you can watch the film Harvey Milk. B is for bisexual. A bisexual is a person who is attracted to 2 or more genders. Bisexual are often unseen, either perceived as hetero or homosexual, but being bisexual is a proper orientation, identity, and culture. Cynthia Erivo is my latest favorite bisexual representation. You probably saw her in Wicked, the musical. So, LGBT now. T is for transgender. A person whose gender identity does not match to that assigned at birth. We talked about that earlier. There are a lot of trans women in the beauty industry, but one that I admire a lot is Anta Scheffer, because she uses her visibility as a top model to highlight the rollback on trans rights that's happening right now in the United States. And if you want a little extra advice on how to foster a more inclusive workspace, avoid saying transsexual, because as you know now, it's not so much about sex or genitalia than it is about gender. So let's say transgender. As both gender identity and sexual orientation intersect and create new identities, Q is for queer, meaning a person who defines themselves outside the binary vision of gender and sexuality, or just prefer a broader term to refer to oneself. For instance, and to better introduce myself, my gender identity is non-binary. That's why I use they, them pronouns at the beginning of the video, which are gender-neutral pronouns. As for my romantic preferences, I may have relationship with women, other non-binary people, or trans people. So, I could define myself as non-binary lesbians, open sexual, But it's way simpler to say just that I'm queer. And sometimes it actually feels more accurate. I is for intersex, a person who may have chromosomes, hormones, or anatomy that don't fit typical definitions of male or female, that do not exactly have XX or XY markers in their DNA, for instance. And it's way more common than you think. Did you know that there are as much intersex people as there are redheads in the global populations? A is for asexual or aromantic. Asexual is a person who feels little or no sexual attraction, and aromantic is a person who feels little to no romantic attraction. And finally, the plus refers to all other sexual orientation and gender identities that are not mentioned in the acronym, such as non-binary and pansexuality. Okay, but how much are we exactly? This entire LGBTQIA+ community represents 9% of the world's population. It's close to 800 million people, meaning more than twice the whole population of the USA. But even if we use the word community, it's not a homogeneous group. There are diversity within the diversity, like different realities, different experiences, different prides, and different issues. For example, lesbian women or racialized gays are victims of double discrimination: homophobia and sexism for the former, homophobia and racism for the later. When we take this double penalty into account, we use the term intersectionality. In short, each individual is unique, so it's important not to reduce identities to a single aspect. Let's talk a bit about history. The Pride Months and Pride Parade are an opportunity to celebrate all these identities. If it takes place in June, it's not just for the sun. It's in reference to a milestone in LGBTQIA+ history, the Stonewall riots on June 28, 1969, which was a response to a police raid on a queer bar in New York City at the time. The first Pride was held 1 year later in 1970, and over the years, Pride Month has become a key event around the world for demanding rights for LGBTQIA+ people and celebrating diversity. But the Stonewall riots are the only milestone in the history of LGBTQIA+ rights. For example, did you know that homosexuality was only removed from the WHO's list of mental illnesses in 1990? And trans identity had to wait until 2022. Another very important milestone was the first same-sex marriage in the Netherlands in 2000. If you want to know more about the LGBTQIA+ history, I greatly recommend you the module Pride Month History and its trailblazing LGBTQ figures on the Clarins Academy. In the Q&A, someone asked, "It's a private matter. Why do we have to talk about it at work?" So yes, sexual orientation and gender identity are a personal subject, but as we know, informal discussions are an integral part of corporate life. At Clarins, we want every employee to be free to be themselves, to be authentic, to talk about their private life or not, and not to be afraid on the impact of their career. Because even today, there's still progress to be made. In particular, there are 3 issues on which we can take action. First, we can enable people to be more visible, since only 33% of LGBTQIA+ people have come out, meaning made their identity or sexual orientation visible to their line manager. Second, 1 over 3 LGBTQIA+ individuals report feeling depressed or unhappy at work. It's time to take action to create safer, more supportive environments. And finally, it's important to fight against inequalities. For example, in France, 20% of LGBTQIA+ people say they have perceived inequalities in their career development. And the company has a lot to gain from it. In his book, The Culture Code, Daniel Cole explained that the most successful teams are those that evolve in a safe place. Happiness at work boosts productivity by 31%, and happy employees take half as many sick days. Not to mention that a more inclusive company is a more attractive company. 3/4 of job seekers pay particular attention to the action taken by companies on the subject of diversity, equity, and inclusion. In conclusion, to build a truly inclusive environment, one where everyone feels safe, respected, and free from stereotype and discomfort, the first step is getting to know LGBTQIA+ people better. So, to continue to learn, here are a few personal favorites I'd love to recommend. Pride is a feel-good movie based on true events. It depicts a group of lesbian and gay activists who raise money to help families affected by the British miners' strike in 1984. It's a surprising and beautiful alliance that shows the power of solidarity across communities. The second one is Tales of the City. It's one of my favorite book series, and it's really helpful to understand the evolving reality of LGBTQ+ people across the decades. Set in San Francisco from the 70s to today, it captures how identities, communities, and social norms have shifted while showing the importance of chosen family and safe spaces. And the last one, Posées, is a groundbreaking TV series set in New York's ballroom scene in the late 80s and early 90s. It gives visibility to trans women and queer people of color, highlighting both their struggles and their incredible creativity and sense of family. These stories, all in their own way, remind us why visibility matters and how every step towards inclusion makes a difference. Stay tuned for the second episode coming in the next few days, where we'll dive into concrete action and practical ways to support the LGBTQIA+ community. See you soon.